Okay, let's get into this. Today's deep dive is, well, it's absolutely unlike anything we have ever tackled before.
That's putting it mildly.
We are not looking at a policy paper. We're not looking at a scientific study or even, leaked document. We are stepping directly into this high-stakes, very politically charged conflict. And it's rooted in what can only be described as, I think, the most intensely dramatic and unusual piece of evidence presented in recent political memory.
Right.
A vivid, supernatural, multi-part dream.
A dream being used to justify claims of political assassination and deep, deep betrayal.
Yeah, and that's an accurate framing. We're really analyzing a single source here, a transcript from the YouTube channel The Story Box. And this transcript serves as this really aggressive, skeptical critique of political commentator Candace Owens' reliance on this alleged dream sequence.
So the source isn't just disputing a political stand.
No, not at all. It's dismantling a political methodology, the entire how of her argument. And what a methodology it is. I mean, our mission today is to methodically unpack this whole narrative, this story of spiritual revelation, deep betrayal, and then the public mockery that followed. We need to focus really intensely on what the source material claims Owens said happened, the overwhelmingly hostile reaction it provoked, and fundamentally what happens when a deeply subjective metaphysical belief is deployed as definitive evidence in the very public, very brutal arena of political conflict.
Exactly. We're essentially analyzing a detailed, critical breakdown of a stunningly dramatic story. And this source material, it forces the audience and us, to confront the rules of evidence in modern discourse.
Yeah.
When one side claims a supernatural revelation, a ghost, an apparition, whatever, has delivered the crucial facts, how does the opposition even begin to logically and rhetorically respond? The critique we have in front of us is, well, it's a masterclass in aggressive intellectual dismissal.
Absolutely. The source document uses the dramatic nature of the claim against itself, which is just fascinating to watch. So let's set the stage here. We're diving into Candace Owens' explanation for how she supposedly uncovered the betrayal and alleged assassination of Charlie Kirk. And it all starts with the dream itself, which she recounts with, startling specific detail. She insists that Charlie appeared to her after his alleged demise. Okay, so the opening scene of this revelation is what immediately struck the critics, and honestly, it's what stands out to us. Owens claims Charlie Kirk appeared to her, and in a very clear action, sat down.
Right. It wasn't a fleeting shadow or some, vague presence. This was a vivid, physical interaction. It had a clear sense of a presence.
And then the real hook, the element that establishes the urgency of his visit, was the first thing he said.
I don't have much time.
Exactly. I don't have much time.
That phrase, it instantly establishes this high-stakes, time-sensitive nature of the whole encounter.
It's classic storytelling.
It is. It signals that this isn't some casual visit, but he's a messenger, relaying vital information before he asks.
And the instruction that followed is the actual core of the investigation she claims she received.
He stated explicitly that she needed to see what happened on his left.
Needed to see what happened on his left. We really have to pause on that for a moment. It's so cryptic, it's loaded, and it's highly specific. Why the left?
Is it metaphorical, political ideology?
Yeah, or is it a literal physical clue? Something about the alleged method of his death.
The ambiguity is the point. It heightens the drama.
It makes it sound like an insider's hint, a piece of a puzzle only she was meant to solve.
And then came the explicit accusation that forms the entire foundation of all her public claims.
They betrayed me, multiple people.
That is the thesis statement right there, delivered from the afterlife.
It is.
The claim is that a cabal, a group of people who are close, were responsible for his downfall or demise, and that he bypassed everyone else, choosing Owens to be the sole messenger capable of delivering this critical truth.
But the delivery of this supernatural truth, which is where the critique really starts to pick apart the narrative structure.
Yeah.
Owens described an immediate, frustrating structural difficulty, which he called the frustrating part of the dream.
She knew the information was essential, but the moment she tried to ask the most natural human question,
Who?
Exactly. Or even just tried to speak or engage directly, she started to wake up.
So it's a mechanism of self-sabotage, as she describes it.
Yeah, she felt she was inadvertently pulling herself out of the revelation just by trying to engage too directly, as if the spiritual realm could only handle passive reception, not, interactive dialogue.
The critique in our source material notes that this aligns perfectly with narrative tropes designed to explain why the crucial information, the names, were not immediately revealed.
It creates suspense.
And this is precisely the point where the skeptical source material immediately flags a highly specific pop culture parallel.
Yes.
Owens described that when she tried to listen to Charlie's voice, it sounded muffled,
Like he was underwater.
That specific phrase, like he was underwater, that frustrating, confusing, submerged communication, coupled with the difficulty of remaining in the dream state.
It immediately led the critic to compare the entire narrative arc to the mechanics of the movie Inception.
Let's really unpack that Inception parallel, because it is a brilliant rhetorical attack.
It really is. In Christopher Nolan's film Inception, the characters have to enter layers of dreams, right?
Right, a dream within a dream.
And key to the structure are two things. First, the sensation of being in deep layers can feel distorted, maybe submerged. And second, they have to use an extreme external stimulus, a kick, a shock being thrown into water to wake up and move back up through the dream level.
So the critic is suggesting that the elements Owens describes, the underwater voice, the difficulty of staying in the dream state,
are not signs of spiritual authenticity.
they're just familiar cinematic mechanics.
Exactly. The critic is basically implying that Owens is borrowing the dramatic vocabulary of complex science fiction to lend a sense of profound, layered complexity to what is, at its heart, a simple political accusation.
She isn't just having a dream. She's narrating a multi-level spiritual journey.
Yeah.
And the details she uses to explain the difficulty of receiving the revelation are conveniently borrowed narrative tropes that are just designed to build suspense.
It's the difference between lived experience and a scripted narrative.
Yeah.
The psychological effects she describes, the information being incredibly hard to access and deliberately obscured, conveniently delays the identity revelation.
Which makes the eventual reveal much more powerful dramatically.
Right. The information wasn't freely given, it was rash. The dream had to be coaxed out.
And this rationing leads us directly to the breakthrough moment, which she claims happened 3 weeks after the initial encounter.
That's a long time.
It is. Because the first vision was incomplete, it required follow-up. She claims the identity of one of the betrayers was finally revealed in a subsequent dream.
And that 3-week gap is crucial narrative.
How so?
It transforms the single dream into an ongoing, perhaps even divine investigation. It suggests a process, a struggle, which lends more weight to the final conclusion.
It's not just a fluke, it's a journey.
Exact. And when the revelation finally came, she emphasized the visual quality, describing the appearance as clear as day, which provides stark contrast to the initial frustration and the underwater voices.
The visual clarity signifies the certainty of the accusation, and the setting for the reveal is also specifically cited. The figure appeared from around the corner of the restaurant.
Again, that level of mundane specificity, not a mountaintop, not a cloud, but a restaurant corner.
It adds a veneer of realism to the supernatural claim.
And the identity revealed was Andrew Covett.
This singular, highly specific name, produced from a repeated dream sequence, is the trigger for the entire ensuing public and private conflict.
And now we have to contextualize Owens' own claims about her relationship with Covett at the time of the death.
Right. This is important.
She noted that immediately following the alleged assassination, she was very friendly with Andrew Covett. She had, in fact, spoken extensively with him in the direct aftermath.
And she explicitly stated that during that immediate period, she harbored no negative suspicion about the organization, Turning Point USA.
Right. Her initial assumption, she claims, was that these are good guys who love Charlie Kirk.
This specific detail is such a powerful rhetorical tool within her narrative.
It is. She's arguing that her subconscious wasn't predisposed to distrust Covett or Tse.
So the dream's accusation wasn't a confirmation of an existing bias.
It was a genuine, shocking surprise that went against her prevailing reality. That's the story she's telling.
She said she felt really weird about seeing him in the dream, yet the vision was so vivid and compelling, she felt a moral or spiritual obligation to act on it immediately.
And so the stage is set for an unprecedented confrontation.
We're moving from a private subjective vision to a public digital accusation that involves potential political violence and spiritual damnation. The sheer intensity of the dream, she claims, necessitated immediate real-world action.
You'd think so if you believed it.
Right. Despite acknowledging even to herself that the entire situation was weird and as odd as it was, Owens felt compelled to bypass standard communication and text Covett directly.
Confronting him not with a political question, but with a spiritual accusation derived from her dream.
This text message is, it's arguably the most stunning part of the entire narrative arc.
I agree. It transforms the supernatural claim into a tangible, high-stakes political threat.
It details the contents of a ghostly visitation and then assigns real-world complicity based on that visitation. We have to dissect the exact language she used to really appreciate the magnitude of this confrontation.
Yeah, let's do a line-by-line deconstruction of this text because it is truly extraordinary.
Okay, so she begins by setting the stage, trying to establish her own credibility regarding the experience. She says, "I rarely have vivid dreams, but I had one clear as day this weekend."
So she's validating the method before she even presents the content. She's saying, I'm not someone who does this, so pay attention.
Exactly. She then relays the core narrative elements from the dream encounter, that Charlie came to me and he sat down, that he did not have much time.
And crucially, the reason for the visit was that she needed to know he was in fact betrayed.
Then she includes the cryptic investigative instruction from the deceased. "They are hiding what happened to my left."
She's integrating the entire spiritual narrative directly into a digital a text.
But the text doesn't stop at just relaying the dream content. This is where she inserts her personal and politically catastrophic.
Right.
She states explicitly, "I believe his soul was in purgatory, and I believe that you know much more than you said publicly or privately."
Wow. That last sentence is a multi-layered accusation.
Let's break that down.
First, the claim that Charlie Kirk's soul is in purgatory. I mean, that means his spirit is suffering because of an unresolved earthly betrayal.
That adds immense moral pressure to the recipient, to Andrew Covet.
Immense. He's no longer just being accused of a political slight. He is being accused of actions that are causing eternal suffering to his former friend.
And second, the line, "You know much more than you said."
That is a direct accusation of complicity and withholding evidence related to an assassination.
So the dream, therefore, is simply the spiritual justification for believing he is a criminal accomplice.
It's just a jaw-dropping communication.
It moves from bizarre personal anecdote to a direct, veiled threat. "I have supernatural knowledge that your silence is condemning your friend's soul."
So, given the gravity of that, what was the immediate, concrete outcome of...
The outcome was stark and simple. Andrew Covet never answered.
And according to Owens, this absolute lack of response marked the last time the two...
Which, in the context of her narrative, that silence is interpreted not as confusion or disbelief or a refusal to engage with absurdity.
It's confirmation of his guilt.
The refusal to engage with an accusation that intertwines spiritual consequences with political assassination seems to have sealed her conclusion about his involvement and complicity. For Owens, the silence speaks volumes.
And if we fast forward to Owens's claims in the present day regarding this entire saga, the accusation has dramatically...
Right, it hasn't stopped.
Not at all. She now asserts that Andrew Covet has been actively orchestrating all of these attacks directly.
We need to pause and emphasize the stakes of that word. This doesn't just mean disagreeing on Twitter. It implies a calculated, strategic, centralized campaign to destroy her career or reputation, allegedly being managed by the same person who was highlighted in the dream.
And she claims he was actually caught red-handed in these orchestration efforts.
So it solidifies the dream's initial warning into ongoing tangible enemy action.
The narrative shift here is from a past betrayal, Charlie Kirk's death, to an ongoing campaign of present-day political warfare against her, the messenger.
And she even admits a certain level of retrospective astonishment about her own naivety.
Right. She says, "It's sort of ridiculous that I didn't just assume that earlier."
This rhetorical strategy is essential for her narrative credibility.
It really is. By admitting she initially trusted Covet and TPUSA, that she thought they were good guys who loved Charlie.
It strengthens the idea that the dream was a truly external, powerful revelation that forced her to confront an unwelcome truth rather than just confirming a political grudge she already had.
Exactly. The arc demands that she went from trust to supernatural shock to confrontation to solidified certainty of current ongoing betrayal. It's a hero's journey, in a way.
But, as you pointed out, a narrative this compelling and this dramatic, especially one relying on the deceased delivering clues, triggered an immediate and intensely skeptical backlash.
Of course it did.
And that is what our source material spends the majority of its time dissecting. This skepticism doesn't just dismiss the claim, it aggressively mocks the very mechanism of the dream itself. And that is where the analysis becomes truly fascinating. Okay, so the general theme of the skepticism expressed in the Storybox trend, it's focused entirely on the lack of objective, verifiable evidence.
Yeah, the critic refuses to debate the content of the accusation at all. They debate the necessity of the elaborate pack.
And the critic asks this central rhetorical question, why, if it's just a dream, why does it require so much effort on the PR front?
That question is the heart of the critic immediately perceives Owens's extremely detailed, serialized presentation of the dream. The underwater voices, the 3-week search for the face, the check my left instruct.
As a calculated performance.
Exact. If this were a simple, private shock, the critic implies, she would simply make the act. The need for such dramatic framing is what makes the claim suspicious. It's too polished, too clean.
And this brings us right back to that crucial pop culture reference they lean into so heavily for mock.
The Inception parallel.
The critic clearly spends time laying out why Owens's detailed account sounds suspiciously derivative.
And we talked earlier about the specific tropes,
Yeah.
the sensation of being underwater when trying to listen, and the mechanism of waking yourself up by trying to speak.
The critic is deeply connecting this to the established internal logic of the Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, they're pointing out that in Inception, the deeper you go, the more distorted reality becomes, hence the underwater sound. And if you get too agitated or attempt communication that disrupts the mental balance, you risk waking up completely.
It's a fantastic piece of analysis, really. The critic is saying that the elements Owens uses to make her dreams sound difficult and profound, the struggle for clarity,
are simply the established rules of a major blockbuster film.
it's narrative plagiarism dressed up as spiritual insight.
And the critic zeroes in on the dramatic irony of this, stating, Candace Owens' entire story arc, it's like multiple layers deep almost, that isn't really that depth.
The depth is an illusion.
Completely. She is borrowing the structural complexity, the dream within a dream feel, without having any actual substance to back it up.
The implication is that she watched the movie and absorbed its internal rules for dream physics and then applied them retroactively to her own political grievance.
Which then paves the way for the most theatrical element of the
Oh, this part.
the dramatic, almost comedic mockery of the alleged conversation between Owens and Kirk in the dream. The critic performs the dialogue, turning the solemn revelation into a genuinely ridiculous.
The intention is clearly to strip the claim of all reverence,
All of it. We hear the heightened dramatic plea, Charlie, stay here, stay with me.
followed by the mock instruction for investigation, delivered like a secret agent clue. They betrayed me on my left, check my left.
The repetition and exaggeration of that key phrase just transforms it.
And then the critic delivers the ultimate mock plea from the deceased, framing Owens as this chosen figure burdened with a glorious purpose.
Tell the entire world who they is for me, Candace. Do it for me. Be my David, Candace.
Be my David. Wow.
That reference to David is incredibly potent.
Why David specific?
Because it casts Owens, the political commentator, in the role of the biblical shepherd boy chosen by God to fight Goliath, the impossible battle against the giant establishment.
The critic uses this over-the-top, almost blasphemous comparison as a setup for their later, more severe intellectual dismissal of her legitimate.
But maybe the most universally recognizable piece of mockery.
Has to be the Lion King one.
The visual comparison of Charlie's spectral appearance to Mufasa in the Disney classic.
Wait, the critic actually compared the ghostly appearance to Mufasa in The Cloud, where he tells Simba, remember Simba.
They did.
That level of cultural shade is incredible. Let's spend a moment on why that comparison works so effectively to undermine her claim.
Well, it works because The Lion King is the quintessential, recognized example of a deceased figure appearing to a younger protagonist to deliver instructions about a betrayal orchestrated by an evil uncle.
It's a deeply simplistic, universally understood narrative trope.
Exact. So by equating Owen's complex spiritual revelation to a Disney movie, the critic immediately pulls all the gravity out of the...
It says, you haven't uncovered a political conspiracy. You've just recounted a plot from a children's.
It's the ultimate reduction of high political drama to sentimental, low-stakes fiction.
But the critic takes this rhetorical war a significant step further. Recognizing that simply mocking the dream doesn't refute it as an experience, the critic brilliantly flips the script.
And introduces their own entirely fictional, yet equally vivid, counterclaim dream.
This is a genius rhetorical weapon in a narrative war.
It really is. The critic claimed to have had a vivid dream that Candace Owens was a dingbat, was lying, and most damningly,
Betrayed Charlie.
they claim this dream was so emotionally powerful that it transcended mere subconscious activity and became a belief, just as Owens claimed hers did.
And then the critic escalates the counterclaim to match the stakes set by Owens's assassination claim.
This is the kill shot, rhetorically.
The critic explicitly stated that his dream told him that Candace Owens killed Charlie Kirk.
The intention here is surgical. By using the exact same subjective, unverifiable methodology, the vivid, compelling dream revelation, to make an equally deadly, serious accusation against Owens, the critic exposes the core logical flaw in her method.
If her dream is proof.
Then his dream is equally valid.
And crucially, the critic stated that his mock dream was not just a dream, but fact and factual information that I'm going to...
Which highlights the inherent absurdity and the complete lack of accountability that results when dreams are substituted for evidence.
This masterful rhetorical pivot then leads the critic to a more philosophical discussion regarding the actual nature of dream, acknowledging that the experience Owens described might be real, even if the content isn't factual.
Yeah, they admit that dreams can be incredibly visual and can sometimes feel more real than the real thing.
This is a sophisticated move.
It is, because it validates Owens's subjective experience while entirely rejecting the objective truth she claims to have derived.
The critic states that dreams are the subconscious surfacing. They are intensely personalized projections of our fears, our desires, our political anxieties.
And they offer examples like intensely real sexual dreams or devastating nightmares that feel entirely factual in the moment, yet we wake up and recognize they are not objective.
The core question they pose is, just because something feels profoundly real
doesn't mean that it's
right.
So the core implication from the critic is clear. Even if Owens genuinely experienced Charlie appearing to her, it doesn't transform the contents of that subconscious projection, the accusation against Cope, into a verifiable fact, actionable.
The critic suggests that Owens simply mistook her own political paranoia and anxieties for divine instruction.
It's the crucial separation of psychology from reality.
And in the critic's view, Owens is deliberately collapsing that necessary distinction for political gain, turning her private anxieties into public, destructive accusations.
Which brings us to the ultimate conclusion drawn by the critic. It moves past mere political disagreement and becomes an accusation of intentional, calculated manipulation and self-destruction.
Yeah, they accuse her of using her creativity to concoct this drama, asserting that she is making herself look more like a lunatic day by day as she continues to elaborate on this dream narrative.
The critic strongly implies a performance feedback loop powering this story.
What do you mean by that?
They suggest Owens is developing the story because her specific audience responds positively. They frame their desire with highly derisive language. Oh, yes, I like this new dream. Give me more candy. I like it. Give me more.
So it positions the narrative as pure spec tailored specifically for mass consumption.
Exact. The accusation is that she is deliberately prioritizing engagement and drama giving her audience, whom the critic dismisses as her idiot audience members what they want, over any commitment to verifiable truth.
She is choosing entertainment over integrity to maintain political relevance.
That's the argument. And this brings us to the most highly derogatory and final
The critic states in no uncertain terms that anyone who believes Owens is solving Charlie Kirk's mystery, or there is no mystery, but solving Charlie Kirk's murder by having a dream, a revelation, is intellectually stupid.
They state plainly, I can't help you, you're stupid, just making that clear.
That is the nuclear option of intellectual dismissal found in the source material.
It is. It moves beyond questioning the evidence itself and directly challenges the intelligence and competence of anyone who chooses to accept the dream.
It is a fundamental rejection of the audience that accepts the methodology.
But the final rhetorical blow draws us back to the earlier theatrical mockery, this time using a sacred comparison.
Right. The critic explicitly contrasts Owens with biblical figures who were renowned for interpreting prophetic dreams.
They state with emphasis, she ain't Daniel, first and foremost, and secondly, she ain't, Joseph.
This comparison is not casual. It frames her political dream as a cheap imitation of genuine spiritual prophecy.
Absolutely. Daniel and Joseph are figures whose dream interpretations led to world-altering, verifiable outcome, predicting famine, saving nations.
Owens's dream, in this context, is reduced to a political vendetta.
And the critic notes that some people on X, formerly Twitter, are already calling this specific comparison blasphemy.
We need to analyze why that word is. Why does comparing her to Daniel and Joseph raise the stakes from a political argument to a spiritual or moral violation?
Because it implies a deep transgression against cultural and religious reverence. Blasphemy means that she is equating her personal political feud, which is unsubstantiated by fact, with genuine divine intervention that is traditionally held sacred.
I see.
By invoking the language of prophetic revelation, and by having her follower, the mock dialogues David, suggest she is a chosen messenger, she is seen as diminishing the historical importance, sacred nature of those figures, simply to justify a political squabble.
It's an effective way for the critic to weaponize moral outrage against her claim.
So if we pull all these intense, dramatic threads together, this deep dive is just a stunning case study, clash of evidence types, and the nature of public accusation.
It absolutely.
The entire conflict is built upon a metaphysical foundation, a compelling, vivid, time-sensitive dream about an assassin, which is used to justify severe, real-world claim, implicity, purgatory, and ongoing political frustration.
And this is then countered by an aggressive intellectual dismissal that uses sophisticated rhetorical tools, drawing heavily from pop culture tropes like Inception and The Lion King, alongside these high-stakes moral comparisons of the Bible.
The ultimate takeaway is that the conflict is less about whether Charlie Kirk was betrayed and more about the persuasion. The drama of the source material highlights how narrative structure, whether borrowed from religious prophecy or fictional blockbusters, can be employed to either lend legitimacy to a deeply subjective claim or, conversely, to completely strip it of all credibility through theatrical and intellectual mock.
The mechanism of the proof, the dream itself, becomes the central battle.
And the critic demonstrated a profound understanding of it. They recognized that the dream narrative was designed to be compelling, layered, and hard to refute facts.
So their response was not to offer a contradictory fact.
No, but to craft a counter-narrative, the counter-claim dream of equal structural absurdity. By fighting the claim on its own terms, they successfully exposed the inherent flaw in the foundation of Owens's methodology.
It's a political debate fought entirely with dueling, unverifiable narratives. So we have taken a truly deep dive into a profoundly strange, compelling piece of political commentary.
That's one way to put it.
To briefly recap the central drama, Candace Owens claimed a vivid, multi-night dream revealed the complex betrayal of Charlie Kirk. The dream required multiple nights to finally reveal the betrayer, Andrew Covet, who appeared clear as day after the initial frustrations of underwater voices.
And this highly subjective revelation led to an immediate, extraordinary text-based confrontation, accusing Covet of withholding information and suggesting the deceased soul was trapped in purgatory because of the unresolved betrayal.
And that entire narrative was met with the extreme, specific public mockery detailed in our source, which weaponized familiar cultural touchstones.
Right, the critic used the detailed mechanism of the dream to compare it to the plot of Inception and the appearance of the apparition to Mufasa in The Lion,
culminating in the critic constructing his own fictitious, deadly serious counter-dream to expose the absurdity of using personal revelation as public fact.
At the end of the day, it's a story that tells us far more about how competing narratives are packaged, assumed, and filtered in the modern political landscape than it does about the...
It really does. It demonstrates the willingness to use any and all means, from spiritual claims to pop culture mockery, to win a high-stakes public argument.
And that leads to the final provocative thought we leave you with.
When an accusation, especially one involving assassination and betrayal, relies entirely on a highly subjective personal experience like a dream, what concrete non-subjective criteria must the public apply to judge its merit?
The source material shows us that the rebuttal itself was also framed as a subjective counter-dream. My dream says she killed him.
So when both the claim and the rebuttal are presented through the language of subjective revelation, where does the essential line between compelling narrative and verifiable factual basis truly lie in public discourse? And how can you, the informed listener, recognize when the debate has fundamentally left the realm of reality?
Something to mull over as you navigate your newsfeed and your own nighttime vision.
Indeed. We'll catch you next time for the next Deep Dive.